Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to training today on your new fire apparatus. Training today by Pierce Manufacturing, cooperation with Finley Fire Eqp. John Walter, your salesman. Those of you who went through the training on the tanker, some of this may be a repeat performance on some of the items because some of the stuff is similar between the two trucks. I'd like to congratulate Newton on the purchase of another piece of Pierce fire apparatus. Pierce is the largest manufacturer of fire trucks in the United States. They're owned by the Oshkosh Truck Corporation. Oshkosh also owns Jourdain wreckers and rollbacks. As you go out there on the accident scene, somebody shows up with their Jourdain rollback. Well, that's part of the Oshkosh family. They own McNeilius garbage trucks, McNeilius cement mixers, and JLG lifts. And everybody shares technology back and forth between all those divisions to try to bring you the best product that we can. So hopefully the truck will provide you a lot of years of dependable service. You'll be happy with it. Everybody knows I'm Don Ellie Senior from Duncan Falls. We're doing a little PowerPoint tour around this truck, just like we did on the other trucks. It's easier to show you stuff up here on the screen than it is to crowd everybody up in the cab. Our goal for done, make sure you safely operate the vehicle. Nothing more embarrassing taking the truck to the scene and not being able to do something that you thought about to do, like put water in the hose line or something. So we got about 6 sections of stuff to go through. We're going to talk about the cab, the pump. Pump's a little different on this truck than it is on your other vehicles. Talk about regeneration, so everybody's familiar with how that works on this vehicle. The yellow sticker, where's it at in this truck? Driver's door? Driver's door area. Look in there, probably on the driver's door or on the driver's seat in this truck, because there isn't any engine tunnel for you to look at in the front cab area. On there you'll find stuff like the Pierce job number. Anytime you need to talk to Finley's or talk to Pierce, we'll need to know what the job number is of that particular truck. It talks there about the axle ratings. That's pretty much boring information. But clear out the right side, it talks about the cold tire pressure. And that's the numbers that the Pierce engineers, the tire manufacturers, hope that you'll choose to use for your tire inflation numbers of the vehicle. That is supposed to give you the best handling, the best ride, and the longest tire life. It has paint codes there. It has Sickens paint on the truck. That's not proprietary paint from Pierce in any way. Take that code number, go down to local auto body supply store, sell Sickens paint, and they will be able to get you the same exact paint that we can order for you. Bottom of the 3 sections at the bottom, everything over here is something that holds fluid, whether it be the engine, the transmission, the fire pump, the radiator. The center section is how much it takes, so the guy that services your truck will probably be interested in that. The far right side tells us what kind of fluid goes in all those places. This truck, like your tanker, takes 1540 CJ4 oil. So don't dump any other oil in there unless it says CJ4 on the can, because that has something to do with the ash content in the oil that affects the emissions down the road for regeneration. So some of the older trucks might have taken some other kinds of 1540 oil or straight 40 weight or something like that, but we have to have 1540 CJ4 in these. Tells us about the antifreeze. We have red, we have green. Those two don't mix, so you know what kind of antifreeze goes in there. It talks to you about what kind of fluid goes into your pump, different than what the other Watchers pumps always took of the automatic transmission fluid, different than what the Hale pump takes, which was gear oil. So it tells us there the kind of fluid that goes there and everywhere else on the truck. So it's kind of like your mini owner's manual condensed down to 1 page there. As far as the warranties, it has a 1-year warranty that Pierce covers on the vehicle. Extended warranties for the paint, body, cab, plumbing. Warranty to frame rails for 50 years. Has an engine made by the Detroit folks. Allison made the transmission. And UPF made the water tank. Any of those things that need repaired, those 3 folks take care of their own stuff for the engine, transmission, water tank. They don't allow Pierce Finleys to work on those if they have issues. Has a rear axle made by Meritor. It comes with 2-year parts and labor warranty. It has the command zone, the little TV screen you're seeing up in the cab there in the end. It has a 5-year warranty on the electronic components there. Independent front suspension. Does your ladder have that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it comes with a 3-year warranty on those parts. The Meritor ABS system comes with 3 years. The rollers and the spring stuff on the M-door doors have a 10-year warranty. Harrison gave you a 2-year warranty on the generator. The pump. It says it's made by Pierce. Technically, it's made by Darley Company exclusively for Pierce. It comes with a 6-year warranty and 3,000 pump hours of warranty. So anything that's big and expensive comes with an extended warranty. Hopefully that stuff, won't have to have many repairs on any of those items because they're all reputable type things that's there. But evidently, once in a while, we have issues that need attention. Warranty cards. So they got the box of books, manuals, and CDs for you since this was a demo truck on tour. Has that showed up yet?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So make sure that somebody sends the warranty cards back. I think Detroit might have a log-on site on the internet where you log in with your particular engine serial number. Maybe Allison does too. They may have a card that goes back. But some of that stuff, if they're warranty cards, you need to make sure to get them sent back. And Finley Fire, we're just only like your third-party insurance administrator. We're going to file the claim for you if we have warranty issues. But we don't have the authority to override if they say, no, it's not a warranty claim, it was an abuse issue or whatever. And we'll argue on your behalf all we can, but the final decision comes from some of those manufacturers. But we will do all we can to get the claim allowed for you. Mounting things in the truck. You guys are working at that now. They were working last Saturday when I was here. Biggest thing is something big and heavy. Make sure you have brackets to hold it in place in the truck. Roll-up doors. People have been known to throw things in there that are big and heavy, such as the Jaws of Life or the spreader or something like that. And they shift over against the door. You get the scene, you can't open the door. Then you get back to the station, you complain the door don't go up, they'll go out and they raise the door just fine because on the way home it slid back in the other way and it goes up and down. Adding stuff to the truck electronically. If we tend to add stuff that we want the 12-volt system of the truck to charge, make sure you get with one of the Finley service techs about where to get power from. Don't tap into any hot wire you find because bad things happen. We have issues where people do that. They key the mic on the radio, the engine shuts off, windshield wipers come on. All kinds of strange things happen when you just pick any hot wire because everything's computer controlled today in the truck. And one hot wire may serve multiple functions. So there are some dedicated power points that Pierce created where we get power from, especially for the radio. And so make sure that's the points we use. If we ever weld on the vehicle, make sure we unhook the batteries. All over the truck, danger warning caution tags and labels. You'll see those everywhere, telling us about all kinds of things. That's the attorneys that's involved in building trucks today, telling us all not to do dumb things. Seating in your truck is for how many? 6? 4. 6. 2. 6 is the final number? 6. Okay. And of course it has a seatbelt monitoring device required to be there from the NFPA folks. So if we set in the seat, we do not fasten the seat belt, expect the little riding position light to remain red and the beeps most annoyingly at you. And the system's smart enough to know that if you fasten the seat belt, try to set in front of it, it still beeps. Notice that's not right. It has some SCBA brackets. These are new style brackets. They have the little cord out here, ball on the end of it you pull to release to let you out once you're setting in there. Those are a big improvement over the kind that used to just have the cord that laid loose. It got tucked in behind you and you sat in there and could never find it. So, new and improved system there. Has anti-lock brakes. Your cars have had that for a long time. Has the Jake brake. When do we turn that off? Rain, snow, ice, wet leaves on the road. We talk about it has a seatbelt monitoring system as well. It has side roll protection. In the event the truck's going to roll over, you can expect the seat belts to retract as tight as they can with you setting in there to hold you in place. The air will go out of any of the air ride seats that it might have, and it will prepare you for landing. The side that's going down, there are airbags along the top edge of the cab that are going to deploy to cushion your head, and some that will go off there, and hopefully you land safely. Hopefully we never see that system activated. It's what sets it off is the tilting of the apparatus. So if it detects that we're tilting to that certain degree, expect the side roll protection to deploy. And once it's been deployed, it's just like what's in your car. You have to go back to the dealership and have it worked on. You just can't stuff it back up in there and snap the cover shut. It has to have some attention there. Books, manuals, and CDs. Everything I think the Pierce sent you is probably on CD. They've got one there about DVD about apparatus safety. They've got one about the parts of the truck. They've got a service manual of the truck. They've got an operation manual of the truck. They've got the pump operation stuff. The Detroit and the Allison stuff probably still came in a real paper book. I don't think they've upgraded the CD stuff yet. Doing the fluid levels of the truck, we can do it 3 ways. We can raise the cab if you like to do that. If you open the crew door on the driver's side, we have a trap door that opens where you actually can stand on the ground on this truck and check the fluids. You don't have to climb up into it to do that. And we can do the electronic fluid checks through the command zone system over here for, I believe, oil and power steering and maybe coolant level. Does your ladder have that command zone stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so you know about that. Yeah. Hopefully, so long before they actually put the truck in service, we'll have the wheel lug nuts checked and the U-bolts checked for the proper torque. Burnishing the brakes. Your truck has how many miles on it?
10,000.
10,000. So we're already past the stage of needing to worry about burnishing the brakes on this truck. We're all done. It's probably a good idea to go have it weighed. You guys have access to scales in the area, a lot of them. It's always good to know how much the thing weighs because we all go to places that have bridges that don't have maybe as good load limits as we like for them to have. So just so the driver knows up front how much it weighs versus the bridge, what they're trying to cross. How fast to get across the other side, don't stop in the middle. In the cab area, big battery disconnect switch, where's that at on this one?
Below the dash.
Below the dash, left side, down low. That's the first thing we have to turn on. If we're going to start the truck, we're going to turn that big switch on. We're going to roll this switch forward. How soon do we push the ignition switch or make the start switch to make it run? You see all the lights and the gauges cycle and come back. All the idiot lights on the dash will come on, they'll went out. That's about time to push the start button. When it's time to shut the truck off, new stuff we've never had to do before. We want you to roll the ignition switch backwards, stop the engine. Before we turn the big battery switch off, we would like you to wait about 30 seconds. Reason being, the new trucks have a DEF pump in there. It pumps DEF fluid up through to wherever it goes in the engine and the exhaust emission areas. When the engine stops, that DEF pump reverses and it sucks that fluid back out and puts it into the tank. If we shut the big battery switch off instantly, the DEF pump gets shut off instantly. It doesn't have the opportunity to suck that fluid back out. If the truck's not a real active truck, we had some demo trucks on the road that we kept getting the check engine light on. You had to go to Cummins, and they said, well, you're killing the battery too soon. The DEF fluid's corroded up in them lines. It's not getting sucked back out of there. That's what's causing the light. So that was where we learned to have everybody wait about 30 seconds after you stop the engine before you kill the battery power. Dash area, that stuff hasn't changed since we've had fire trucks. If anybody has questions about any of that stuff, we're probably good to go. Skip that one. Push button controls for the transmission. You guys have that in all your other vehicles. When you push drive in this one, do we get 5-in-1 or 6-in-1 up here?
I think it's 6.
Long time to the river. I thought it was 6-in-1, but I'm not positive of that. If it is 6 or if it is 5, anything above 4 is in overdrive. 4th is your direct drive gear. The other 2 above that are overdrive, or the one above that, whichever it has. If you push the mode button here by mistake, little red light's going to come on there in the corner. Nothing bad will happen. Push it again, it goes off. We don't get any benefit out of that in this particular truck, or most of the trucks. It's something the Allison guy uses to get codes out of the transmission.
Disregard the pump and drive.
Pump and drive, yes, that's not yours. Yeah, you guys didn't see this part here. Heater, air conditioner controls, they're fancy little things. As you push the fan speed to go up, the little lights escalate up, telling you how hot or cold you're wanting it to be, that type thing. The fittings down underneath by the battery switch, again on this truck, don't hook to those. That's for the Detroit guy, the Allison guy, or the Pierce guy to hook his laptop up to get the codes and reprogram things. We're not the EV technicians, and if we hook up to that, bad things usually happen. It's got headlight switch, panel brightness, how bright or dim you want your dash lights to be. Emergency master remote switch down there. If you like looking down to turn the warning lights on, great. If you like looking up to turn them on above the sun visor, that's great too. It's just a two-way type switch. In the cab area, we've got switches for the engine brake, on off. How aggressive do you want it to be? Low, medium, high. It has heated mirrors in the truck. Our pump engagement, a lot different than what we're used to seeing. No big black yellow knob that flips from pump down the road. All we got to do is we arrive on the scene. Your truck, when you set the parking brake, I believe the instructions tell me it's supposed to go to neutral automatically. Anybody notice it does that? Didn't pay attention there. I just read down through and it says it has automatic, drive to neutral upon setting the brake. So we go out there, we'll check and see, but we'll make sure the truck transmission is in neutral. All we got to do is flip that switch. The pump's in gear. You will not see the speedometer come up to 17 miles an hour like the old trucks did. You will not need to put it back into drive unless you intend it to move and pump water. It pumps water in neutral. It has a PTO shaft that comes from the engine back to drive the pump, not through the truck transmission like the other trucks do. So that one sole switch takes us in and out of gear. Switches for the warning lights and stuff above the sun visor. All the warning lights are over here in this left side. Other than the high beam flash, we brake for the federal Q. Flip the air horn activates here. That means you can blow the air horn through your city horn button in the steering column. The generator PTO. I did not see where this truck had any interlocks into the PTO system for the generator. So that means I think you can put the generator on anytime you choose to, and it should come on. I would urge you to only do that at low RPMs. Even though it is a hot shift thing that will shift it on the fly, repeatedly doing that will probably result in the need for a new PTO engagement mechanism for that. So if you try to remember to do that as you arrive on the scene, or you're down to an idle pulling into the scene, that type thing, that's fine. But I probably wouldn't repeatedly try to engage that as we're going down the road at 50 miles an hour. Also in the cab, it has a pump pressure gauge and a water level gauge, because this truck will pump and move. After you've got the pump into gear, if you want to drive and move, just put it in D, lock down with little arrow buttons so it says 1-1. You've locked it down into first gear. Your accelerator pedal will determine how much pressure the guy's going to have and how fast the truck's going to move as you pump and squirt water at the same time. That takes some coordination if you ever intend to do that, because you don't want to be dragging the hose line guy down the street beside you, or else you don't want him to have not enough pressure, the water won't hardly come out of the nozzle. So it takes a little bit of practice and coordination if there's ever an opportunity you think you'll ever do that. We don't live in the wildland fires of out west where they need to pump and move on those type things that much. So generally I think once we arrive, we're there until we're done. It has the ability to pump and move. That's why that stuff's up there in the cab. So the pump operator, the driver, will know what's happening. The red light between the sun visors is blinking. What's that trying to tell us? Don't move. One of the doors is open someplace. Siren, I think everybody knows about that. The remote controls for the mirrors, they're over to the left of the ignition switch, which is over to the left of the dash of the truck. Depending on where you turn this particular switch, determines which mirror you'll adjust, whether it'll be the flat mirror or the convex mirror. And we have one of those for each side. So those are just a little bit obscured where they're at. They're behind the handrail. You kind of have to search for them to find them in the truck. It has a traffic arrow direction stick for the back. Controls are up there in the cab with the driver. Officers have some foot pedals on the floor, help control all the different sounds, the air horn, sirens. You got some lights inside the cab, the dome lights, just like the other trucks. You push on the lens, turn either of those on or off. And we've got a couple switched lights up for the driver and the officer there, so that they can look for the maps or whatever. The command zone, if you guys have that on your other truck, you're probably familiar with pushing the buttons, playing. There's nothing you can change there other than the date and time. You can push all the buttons you want, look all you want. All you're going to do is get information. And I said the date and time is the only thing you can change. It defaults to 2 different screens, this being one of them, which is the engine information stuff, or you can set the default so it shows a picture of the truck. If it has the truck picture, it will show you what doors are open anywhere around the truck. Questions about stuff that was in the cab? If we go to the pump panel, and it's kind of hard to explain the pump panel, there's 2 different sections. On the driver's side, we've got a part you see, and a part you have to roll up the door to find. Behind the roll-up doors where you find the gauges and most of the controls. It has 2 different types of control mechanisms for the valves. We have color-coded manual gauges and handles. We have electric ones. The electric ones work the 2 outlets on the passenger side of the truck, because there isn't any way to get the hard linkage from where you're at over to there to make it still work. So the electric button operated things here, it's a push and hold. If you want it to close or open, you have to push and hold. The little bar graph shows where you're at in that thing, so if you want to open it part of the way, all the way. Plus it also has the pressure readout for those. Some of you have noticed that the valve controls are opposite of what most of the normal trucks are. On these trucks, closed and open are reversed from what other trucks are. So you kind of got to pay attention to where the stuff's at to know what you're doing there. You don't want to go by the old school method, or you might have it doing the wrong thing. It has an air operated primer, same as your tanker has out here now. Probably the greatest thing that we've invented. There are no moving parts, no cables to the stick, no solenoids not to work. As long as you have air brake pressure in the truck, the primer should work. Pushing on a little button, you'll hear it make a whooshing sound instead of that the old one's made. And the little tag up here talks about for enhanced performance to increase the engine speed. Well, that kind of depends on what we're doing. You guys drain here in the wintertime because it's cold?
Not normally.
No, not normally? Okay. Sometimes we have to prime. We get an airlock or something. That's a quick priming event. And you push the button 4 or 5 seconds and you got to take it care of. If that's the case here, then there's probably no need to worry about speeding the engine up. If we drag out the hard suction hose and we're going to draft water, we're going to prime a lot longer. That's going to be 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute. We're going to beat on a coupling, we're going to prime some more. That's the time to speed the motor up, because the air primer gets its air power out of the air brake tanks of the truck. So that quick burst of priming, we just hit it quick and easy. That's like stepping on the brake pedal one time. We didn't use enough air to even engage the air compressor. If we're going to prime for a longer period, yes, we're going to use the air out of the tanks. The compressor needs to come on, replenish that. That's why they want to speed the motor up in those scenarios. So if we're drafting, try to remember to speed the motor up while you're priming. Otherwise, we're just priming because we're uphill with the tank or something. It's a quick thing. Probably not a big deal. Engine pressure governor on this truck. What's on your ladder? This one?
No.
No. It's got the arrow buttons, the captain. Okay. Well, they went back on this engine pressure governor to turn the knob. Everybody that runs the fire truck, they like turning the knob. They think that's better than the push buttons. Makes it feel like it's a real fire truck. So when we go back, we put your pumping gear in the cab. We're going to come back to the pump panel. Does your truck automatically default to PSI, or do we have to choose? Does anybody know? Have to choose? Okay. Some of them automatically goes there, others don't. So until we go out and I push the button one time, I don't know. But if yours does not automatically default to the pressure side, that means we'll need to push this mode button one time, make it go into the PSI mode. At that point in time, we can speed the motor up by turning the throttle. It turns the opposite of the ways the old trucks used to turn. It actually had a cable that went down to the engine. So it's got a big arrow here to help guide you to increase the speed. Once it's in the PSI mode, the pressure will show up right here in this little square. And it normally idles somewhere around 46 pounds of pressure. As you turn the big knob, you'll see the numbers change to whatever you're turning it to. So if you want to go to 120 pounds, if that's where you pump your hand lines at, turn it till it says 120. It will work to maintain that pressure for you to the best of its ability. If we flow more water, they drag off the second line and actually start opening the hose and flowing water. You should expect to hear your engine ramp up a few RPMs because it had to work a little bit harder than it did before. When they shut down, you expect to hear your engine slow down a little bit because it didn't have to work as hard. The pressure number shouldn't change. It should stay there at the 120. When we're done pumping, is your idle button, have you pushed that one yet on this truck? Fast or slow? It's a slow return. Okay. Because some of them have been fireman proof, we can push the idle button and it gradually brings us back to an idle and we're done pumping water. Or if you want to turn the big black knob back, turn it back till the words idle engine appear in this same little square where we had pressure numbers before. When you're done pumping, make sure that it says idle engine back there before you go up the cab to try to take it out of gear. Don't leave it at 46 or 47 or 50 pounds of pressure. We think that's idling. When you disengage the pump up in the cab, you'll hear the engine ramp up then. It was actually under some load. So make sure it says idle engine back here when you take that out. It has some other features back here. It has across the top, which you can hardly see, there's oil pressure, engine temperature, battery voltage, that type stuff there. They light up in green, which is good. If something bad is happening, they turn amber. If they turn red, it's already happened, it's bad. Better shut down. The top red little square up there, rectangle, is our RPMs. Shows that for there. We have a preset button we can push, and it will automatically take us to a predetermined pressure of some number automatically there, whatever it's been chosen to be set at. Generally, they're set for 120, 125, 130. I don't know where yours is set at till we go out and play with it. And is that a good number? Do you like that number, or do you want to change from that number?
120 is about normals.
Okay. So, I mean, it's just a starting place to go to. It's quick and easy at 2 in the morning. If I push the mode button, I have PSI. I can push preset. This is going to take me to that predetermined number of 120, 125 pounds. Less steps I have to do at 2 a.m. in the morning to get water. If that's not enough and you want to speed up, you can turn the big black knob. If it took you 120 or 125 and they only wanted 100, turn the big black knob the other way, take us back to 100. So it's not anything that's locked in place there, it's just where it's going to go to automatically. You can still go up or down from that setting. Your water level gauge is also built into here as well. Shows us how much water is in the tank. If I push the mode button twice, I'll make the blue RPM light come on over there. Probably only a couple of times that the pump folks think we need to be in RPM. One would be if we were going to draft water and send it someplace through hose lines down the street to the actual fire scene to another engine or ladder or something. If that's the case, they want us to be in the RPM mode. If we laid lines from a hydrant, pumped into ourselves, out of ourselves, down the street to the ladder, the fire truck, or whatever at the scene, again, relay pumping, I'll be in RPM. Other than that, if hand lines are off the truck, you want to be in PSI. Because in RPM, there is no automatic safety features. You choose the pressure, and nothing changes. If you cranked it up to what you thought was 100 pounds, and they open the hand lines up, you'll expect to see the big pressure gauges drop down to probably 90. It's not going to speed up for you. On the same token, when they shut down, it's going to jump up because now the water's not going anywhere. Pressure's going to come up. The other guy with the other hand line will know somebody closed the nozzle. He got a bunch more pressure all of a sudden. So if hand lines are off, we want to be in the PSI. If we're supplying water, we're in RPM. It has a menu button you can push. And in this same little window where it did show our pressure numbers, it will show the readouts of what these squiggly green lines or amber lines are trying to tell us. You'll come back with real words. It says the engine oil pressure is 86 pounds. The engine temperature is 125. That type of stuff. Once you've kept pushing the button and scroll clear through the whole list, you know you're back where you started from. If you reach down and turn that big black knob, it's kind of a detinted knob. You'll feel it click once. and it will take us back to our pressure number there. It's still in the pressure mode all the time we're looking at the menu. That didn't disable it in any way. Questions about the engine pressure governor? The only thing it cannot do is take the truck slower than an idle. So if we go out somewhere and we hook the hydrant and it has 100 pounds of pressure, the truck's idling, makes 46 pounds or so of pressure on its own, the guy with the hand line is going to have 146 pounds. Because it can't make the truck go any slower than idle. At that point, you'll have to choke the hand line back manually with one of the valves to reduce the pressure for them. But that's the only thing it cannot do, is to take the truck any slower than an idle. The part of the pump panel that you see out there at the truck, without rolling up the door, has the big inlet. They were putting the valve on there today when I was here. We've got a couple discharges here. We've got a small intake over here. And these have the gauges associated with them, red and blue on this side. These are the manually controlled stuff that's on the driver's side. Passenger side is electronic. We have drains down there at the bottom. Nice lift chrome handle drains. Part of the pump panel that we're seeing, these are our controls we talked about. Anything that has the red tag that says water foam, it means it's a water and foam capable hand line or discharge. These that have no red labels, they're not foam operated. We've got switches here for some of the lights around the truck, the floodlights and things on the side, the pump panel lights. On that same driver's side pump panel, we have the controls to hook up foam. We'll talk about these two things here in a little bit. The passenger side, those of us who've been around the fire service a long time, we were always taught, the fittings that were up high were discharges. The fittings that were down low were intakes. Take that slide out of the tray, because with the puck pump, you notice things are a little different. Intake is here. Discharge is over here, lower than what that is. So we have to kind of pay attention when we're out there. Things have changed now. And we have a little nut-looking thing setting here. Back inside is one there. If the electric fails, water and electric sometimes don't mix together very well. If something gets corroded with the wiring or the wire falls off or whatever and the valve won't open, we can manually open that valve. There's a big long speed wrench that came with the truck. I saw you guys had it mounted to your tool board out here last week. Stick that socket on there and crank it manually, so we can still make it work even though the electric should fail. It has an incoming pressure relief valve designed to protect the pump from being overpressured. It's adjustable. A little bolt here on the end is what puts spring tension here to help hold the discharge closed. Instead of having a valve that opens and closes, it's a spring that holds it shut or open. I don't know, where's yours others adjusted at? Anybody ever change them? They just sat where they came from the factory, or? I don't know, not to say anything bad about Maysville water, but I don't think you have a tremendous amount of pressure from the Maysville water system. Is that a safe guess?
Yeah.
Okay. So we may, if they're set somewhere around 100 or so, we may not have enough pressure for them to actually pop that open. Some days you go someplace and they have a lot of hydrant and this water is suddenly blowing up underneath your truck, it's probably because the pressure relief valve is open. It has more pressure coming than what it's set at. The foam system. You guys often have the Husky 3 foam system installed in the truck. Kind of a simpler system. The other truck had, what, the Husky 10 or 12? The Sabre. Okay. This one is a simpler type system, although the other ones weren't very complicated either. If you've arrived at the fire and they decide they want to have foam, your sole job will be to push that red button, then turn the system on. It should be set to a certain particular number here, foam percentage. Generally it's set at 0.5. We can change the default to whatever you want it to be, or you can as you read the manual to learn how to do that. And as the demand arises, we start flowing water, the foam pump will come on, it injects foam into the system, and everybody has foam. Any of the things that are foam water capable, they'll all have foam if they're in use. So there's no way to selectively give one cross-lay foam without giving everybody else foam. When you're done, the fire's about out, just like we were supposed to do with the old system. Turn it off, run the hose line until clean water comes out the end. It's ready for the next fire run. So that's about as easy as we can get as far as the foam system operation. If you want to change the percentage, up down buttons here, we'll change that. Generally, everybody's happy somewhere 0.4, 0.5. Occasionally we can get down to 0.3 depending on how they plumb the trucks. It has a foam level gauge as well. On the side of the pump panel, it has this little fitting here where you can hook the pickup tube to that. The selections here, tank and draft, where your red lever's at. All that's asking is where do you want the system to get foam from? Normally it's going to be set in the tank mode. We're going to use foam out of the onboard tank of the truck. If the situation arose, we used up all the A foam on board, and we want to get foam out of a bucket on the ground for B or for A foam, all we'll need to do is put our little pickup tube in here, stick it in the bucket, flip this up to draft. It will take foam out of the bucket now, put it in the foam pump and out the hose line. If the situation arose that we're going to use B foam, do we anticipate using B foam through the truck? No. Okay. It has the ability to do B foam. But when we were done, make sure you came back to the station and sucked about 10 gallons of plain water through there and flushed out all the B foam that might be in there. Because when B and A come together, they make jello next week and the service techs will hate you. So it will draft from on the ground in A or B. And if we want to fill our onboard tank, did you guys fill it yourself or did Finley's fill it?
It's full.
It's full. I saw that. That's why I didn't know if you guys played that and did it. Or they sent it. Okay. It has the ability to load foam from on the ground. So we hook our pickup tubes up to here. We flip that up to draft. Just like our other system, we had that yellow handle behind the chrome door on the pump panel. You have to flip. We go back to the control head. Do not turn this system on, but keep pushing decrease till the words FIL appear there. Once they are there, then you can turn the system on, and it will suck the foam out of the bucket and put it up into the tank on the truck. If you turn it on first and push decrease, it goes to 0.1, and then it goes back to 3. You can never get FIL to appear there if it's turned on. And it does. It's like the commode. When it fills up, it shuts off. It has some system status lights over here and a whole list of descriptions, what the blinking combinations or steady burning combinations of those tell you it's doing. Biggest thing, remember, is to flip the handle to fill, flip the handle back when we're done. We're ready for the next run then. Put our red lever back over to the tank position so it'll be getting foam from the tank. And we talked about the yellow handle there. Questions about the pump and the foam? We go to the cab area. Make sure we have nothing in the front bumper that's going to interfere when the cab goes up. They still want us to take them forward-facing packs out of those brackets before we raise the cab. And we have a little panel there to lower, raise, and activate. As long as the battery's on, ignition's on, and flip that to raise, hit activate, and watch the cab go up. Once it goes all the way up, make sure you employ the stay arm. When we're done, put the stay arm down, flip it to lower, hit activate, and watch it come back down. Relatively simple. Fusion ball plug, make sure we let it self-eject from the truck. Don't try to unplug it first. It has a ladder to help you get up to the coffin compartments in the back or up into the hose bed area. It has a latch that lets it be stored. Flip it and it angles out. Push up on the bottom section, it releases the locks and lets it drop down, so it's in the climbing position. When you're done, shove the bottom section back up, it locks back up, fold it back in against the truck.
Does that ladder have an alarm work on?
I do not believe that it is wired to the truck, but until we check, I can't positively say that. I did not see in the PPR that it said that it was, but sometimes they don't always tell us some things. For your tool boards, have a lock that lets them pull out, and once they're out, they're locked out. You got to release that to let them go back in. Questions there? Arriving at the fire, properly positioning the truck. So we're in the tanker class. We saw that. You know, that maybe isn't the best positioning to be at, but it don't always work like the book says in the real world.
They'll pump in water too.
Yes, they are. You can see they're feeding with LDH. They're fighting the fire. Won't be any water left in the back of the tank that day. They'll use it all. They want to try to park upwind away from the heat and flames. Well, that's a great idea, but not in the real world. It doesn't always work that way. There is an ember separator built into the air intake system of the truck designed to keep burning embers out of your air cleaner. But in that box of warranty cards, there wasn't any warranty cards in them, folks. So if we are downwind in the ember zone, make sure the pump operator is paying close attention to the truck. We certainly don't want a big air cleaner in there that has enough paper and plastic and rubber hoses hooked to it that if it catches fire, bad things will happen. We don't want to be on his news that night.
They probably wouldn't catch it anyway.
Or they tell it to be the wrong fire department. Yeah. The ladders, your guys are stored alongside the water tank on this truck. So if you're pulling in behind it, don't pull bumper to bumper in the tanker and the pumper, or you will lock the ladders in the pumper. It takes about 18 feet of space to be able to get them out and use them. Lighting around the vehicle has all those white ground lights on to set the parking brake. Wheel chocks, I believe, is that on there?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we're good with that. The pump. Actually, we talk about it's not powered to the transmission of the truck anymore. It's powered through a rear engine PTO shaft. That's the same setup that cement mixers used for a long time. So when I told you McNeilius, or Oshkosh owns McNeilius cement mixers, that's probably the division that shared this technology over with the fire truck division to be able to use a rear engine PTO. Now on the back of the engine, if you can see, it looks like this. This is where the shaft comes out. There's a big guard over it. We raise the cab, we can see that. Has a tag on it about do not stand on that. But that's why it will pump and move separate from the transmission. Everything runs off the PTO shaft of the truck engine. If you look at your pump, this picture over on the left is what it looks like when it's sitting on the floor. This is where the frame rails run up alongside there. So our pump is actually up higher than all the outlets and inlets are. And again, inlet is not always the lowest point on the truck anymore. Once it gets put in the truck, it looks like the picture over there on the right. So if we arrive at the fire again, we want to pump water. We'll make sure we are in neutral. Parking brake set, and we're going to flip that switch. And all it does is go forward. The red light's on when it's okay to do the rolling. When we're stationary, the green light's on when we're in neutral. So pushing this one on, we should like the green light here, should like the green light over there. As we step out of the cab, again, remember to inhibit regeneration, just like we did on the tanker. Because we don't want to go into burnout mode while we're sitting there to fire. That inhibit switch is down underneath the battery switch. It's easier to step down out of the truck and reach over there and flip it than it is to try to do it while you're sitting in the driver's seat.
That should almost be set up in the system where it won't shut off.
Well,
that's something there that should be set up being this fire apparatus where they can't shut it off, because I'll guarantee you down the road you're going to have a lot of issues with the equipment. Because guys are going to forget that, they're going to come back and forget it, and then they're going to have $10,000 wrapped up in EF systems.
Once you shut the truck off, if you forgot to shut it off when you're done with the fire, you come back, turn the batteries off, it's off again then. So it can't stay on forever that way.
Yeah, most equipment don't shut off like that.
Right.
As soon as mine shuts off, it goes through everything before it will shut off. But I know what's going to happen over the course of the time.
And
it's imperative that it goes through that, because you don't.
Then if it tries to and can't,
that system up.
then it trips the faults, and you have to go see the check engine folks to get the lights worked on and force it to do the regen if it tries to and it can't.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we don't want to go in the regen mode while we're sitting there.
Well,
Fire.
if it's like my truck, it won't. It'll sit there and come up on it. If I get the crane out and working it, it will go up on it, but it will not affect any of the functions while it's regenerating.
Okay. Excepting the temperature.
Huh?
Accepting the temperature of the tailpipe.
Yes.
Yes. That's why the biggest thing we try to inhibit when we're pumping is because of the tailpipe and not causing a second fire or burning somebody or trying to get something out of the compartment if it's in that regen mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're disabling it while we're pumping. If you have got the pumping gear and you want to move, release the parking brake, put the transmission in drive, and bring it down to 1-1 through the arrows, and you can pump and move. There's the inhibit regeneration switch and the regen switch both, as well as a couple other switches that the technicians use. So those are down underneath the battery disconnect switch, bottom of the dash, but try to inhibit every time we pump water. We're done. We're going to make sure we put the engine back to an idle. Go back up in the cab. We're already in neutral, unlike the other trucks. So all we have to do is flip that switch down, pumps disengage. Remember to turn off our inhibit regen. Had we been moving and driving, make sure we go to neutral first. Then disengage our pump. We want to make sure we're in neutral when we flip that switch to engage the pump or disengage the pump. We talk about inhibiting regen. There is a manifold drain on the truck. If we have energized the foam system after the pump's out of gear, either while we're sitting out there at the fire scene or we come back to the station, try to remember to open that manifold drain for a few seconds. You're not going to drain the whole system out, but you're going to relieve the pressure. If that foam pump generator is a separate pump, there's a foam manifold under the truck where all the discharges come out of. Opening that, and you'll hear it go, shh. You're done. Yeah, 4 or 5 seconds of letting that pressure off, and we're good. Should the switch in the cab fail? Electric switches and wiring and things have been known to go bad over time, and suddenly that switch in the cab doesn't put our pump into gear. So we have a secondary switch. That same silver door that we opened, behind here was that yellow handle on your truck. Flip for the foam. We'll find this little red guarded switch. Lift that guard and flip the switch. It's a secondary switch to put the pump into gear. So if the main one in the cab fails, we've got a backup system. Which hopefully we'll never have to use that, but it's there just in case. They want us to check the oil, and it has a dipstick on the pump. When we have the cab up, we'll show you where that's at. We'll attempt to get that out if somebody didn't over-tighten it today. But they would like you to look at the oil every 3 months or so, and they would like you to change the oil every 100 hours of pumping time or 6 months, depending on which comes first. Most of us, that'll be the 6 months will go by. And again, the incoming pressure, they want us to make sure we have at least 20 pounds from the hydrant. That seems all the other trucks. That hasn't changed, so we don't cavitate. We know the engine pressure governor speeds us up, slows us down. Is this the one you have on the ladder?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Don't slam the valve shut. Don't jerk it open. We've all learned that a long time ago, back in the first of our firefighter classes. Don't make water hammer. The thing we didn't talk about with the engine pressure governor was its ability not to allow the pump to cavitate. It senses air. It will blink low supply, and you have about 10 seconds to do something about it. And if you haven't saw that or caught that in that time span, expect it to take the truck back to an idle. It will not allow the truck pump to cavitate. Using large diameter hose, we're all good about bleeding the air out of that. Never have any issues there. Do you foresee the time we might use the 2.5-inch inlet? Tanker shows up, we're going to supply water, we might drag the 2.5 up to the truck. Air will be our same culprit there. In that 100 feet of hose or 50 feet of hose between the tanker and this truck, there's air. If we store this truck with the auxiliary drain valve open for the 2.5-inch inlet, leave it open all the time. That way, when you hook the hose up, you tell that guy at the tanker, charge the line. When the water comes up, the air goes out the drain first. Once water comes gushing out of that drain, shut it, lift the big handle, and take water into the pump. It won't idle back. Nothing bad. The guys inside won't know we made a water supply change. If we let that air go in first, they'll be a little concerned when their hose line goes limp. This section talks about cold. we're from Ohio. We know water freezes when it's below 0 or below 32 degrees, actually. Idling. How are we using the high idle switch? Good or bad?
Get better.
Get better on this one. New engines, the emissions, regeneration jump, they don't want the engine to idle. So if we go out to the scene, Pierce's general scenario is, if you don't put the pump in gear, flip high idle. And once you're out of the scene, do one of the two. Either raise the RPMs by pumping water, or if you're not going to pump water, hit high idle. Don't let the trucks out there and idle. If we do, those are the bad things that happen. Builds up carbon. That's the biggest thing, the regeneration stuff. Can dilute the diesel fuel, all kind of bad things there. The engine vibrates more than idle. You've all seen the Harley motorcycle pull up beside his traffic light. His engine's wobbling from side to side in the frame as he idles, and as he revs up to go away, it suddenly sits there smooth. Same thing happens with fire trucks. So it's better on the PTO shafts if we don't wobble and vibrate around as much. So down by the steering wheel on the right hand side is that high idle switch. Once you turn it on, it increases our engine speed to about 1,000 RPMs. If we are done and you forget to turn that off, when you release the big yellow parking brake knob, it goes back to idle automatically. It doesn't stay on. So it only will work when the parking brake is set. Washing, you guys can wash it anytime you want. Actually, the paint's probably cured on this truck, so you can wax it now anytime that you want. Just don't wax over the reflective lettering, striping, graphics, chevrons, that type of stuff. Wax around all that. Regeneration. Your new tanker has regeneration. There's warning lights that might come on. I forgot to tell you, on the sun visor of the Freightliners, you flip it down, you'll see all the warning light symbols about regeneration. They have that pictured there for you. I'll leave a card with you today for the other truck. Actually, it comes from Cummins, but everybody uses the same symbols. We may not see the lights very often, and then when it first comes on, there's always questions about what that light's on, what that's supposed to mean, and we got to do. And so if I have the little card there, you'll have a better idea what that is. We already talked about to take special oil. Ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel is the only fuel we can buy nowadays, so we're good there. We'll look at them 4 lights in greater detail instead of in that big white blob. Under the truck, diesel particulate filter. What you and I thought's the muffler. There isn't a muffler on the truck anymore. It's now called a diesel particulate filter. Looks like a muffler to me. Exhaust in one end, exhaust out the other end. It's got a bunch of wires and hoses hooked to it. But its job is to capture all the black soot that diesel engine generates. When it gets full of soot, it has to do something with it. It burns it out. That's what the engine folks call regeneration. When it's doing that, the temperature coming out of the tailpipe can be 11 to 1,500 degrees worth of hot. Pierce has a diffuser built in there, brings it back to about 900 degrees. I don't think I can tell 9 from 1,100 standing out there if it's in that burnout mode. When it's all done burning out the soot, it leaves ashes. We should never have to worry about having that cleaned because they're designed to go for 500,000 miles. We'll never see that kind of miles on the trucks. We won't have to worry about cleaning our diesel particulate filter. All we have to do is burn the soot out like we're supposed to. That process of burning the soot out, to me, is just like folks that have a wood burner that has a chimney fire. Their chimney gets all creosoted up, full of soot and junk. It catches fire. It's extremely hot. When it's done, it's clean. It burns all that junk out. Same thing happens here in this diesel particulate filter of the truck. It gets full of soot. We inject minute amounts of diesel fuel back in there, we ignite it, we burn it out. It's clean when we're done. They have it designed to regenerate as we drive, but we have to drive somewhere for about 20 minutes at the same speed. That's great for you road truck drivers going from here to California, but for us that go out and about in the rural area, we probably don't drive somewhere 20 minutes at the same speed. So we have a hard time getting that automatic regen done. If that light comes on, looks like exhaust fumes with what I call a thermometer stuck in it, and you might see that light pop on when you pull back into the station or pull up to a stop sign. Sometimes that light pops on. For whatever reason, it has been doing regeneration. All that light is telling us is we have high exhaust temperature. Don't go back and hug the tailpipe. It's hot back here. Yeah. Do you guys have the exhaust system in your station? No. Okay. If you did, I'd say don't hook it up to that if that light's been on. Let it cool down a while. Normally that light, like I said, I've had it come on a lot of times when we pull up and stop. It's been doing regeneration somehow, some way. Nothing to worry about other than the tailpipe is hot with that one. The other light, the exhaust fumes with what looks like railroad tracks or something down through it. That's the light that tells us our diesel particulate filter is full of soot. We have to do something about it. So if that light pops on, we've got 6 hours of engine running time to accomplish that. So if that light comes on in the middle of the way to the fire, don't think you have to slide off the edge of the road and call for help if you're out of service. Keep going. We've got 6 hours to fix the problem. If nobody's done anything after about the first 4 hours, then the light will begin to blink, trying to get our attention, saying, hey, we really need to do regeneration here. So they want us to either go highway driving flat out somewhere or do the park regeneration. Most of the fire service has to do the park regen. If we're doing park, they want us to do that in a safe area, someplace that's in concrete or stone, not on the blacktop or not in the grass. They want us to have nothing within 5 feet of the exhaust pipe that can melt, burn, or explode. So be careful where you park at. And we're going to let the truck set and idle. One time this will be idling. We're not going to hit high idle. We're not going to put the pump into gear. We're in neutral. Parking brake is set. And that switch that said we're going to do the regen, DPF regen, we're going to push that switch and hold it. If your truck ramps up to about 1,000, 1,400 RPMs, great. Some of the Detroits, and we never know until you've tried this, when the thing actually had to be regen. If it doesn't speed up, you may have to step back up in the cab, release the parking brake, put it in the drive, put it in neutral, and reset the parking brake, and then push the switch. Some of the Detroits are coded that way, others are not. So if you push the DPF regen and nothing happened, then yours must be one of them that's coded that we have to go trip the brakes and the new transmission again. If it ramps up, great, it's going to burn out. In the middle of that process of burning out, if you get a run, no big deal. Stepping on the brake, stepping on the throttle, stops regeneration. Off the road we go to the fire run. It takes somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes to burn out when the thing's full. So it just depends on just be where you're going to have sat there, 20, 40 minutes or so. So when you're clear to know when it's done, it idles back down. That point in time is burn out. If we interrupt that process and go on the run, if that light that said we had to regen stayed on, we went to the fire, we came back, it's still on, we can park, I can flip regen again, and finish. If it went out in our travels, which it probably will, we cannot regen again until that light comes on. All it does is sit out there and burn up diesel fuel. And if it went out in our process there, it's probably like emptying a bucket of water. If you didn't empty it all the way out, it's going to fill up faster the second time than it did when it was totally empty. So you may see the light come on sooner the second go around. Inhibiting, we talk about doing that while we're pumping, because if it would go into the regen mode while we're pumping, and all the conditions came together, it could, because we're at a steady speed. We got 120 pounds resulted in 1,100 RPMs or whatever, and we could be there for a long time. That's why we inhibit, so we don't set something else on fire or get somebody burnt, or they're looking for something in the compartment. If you get a check engine light with the regen light on, that means our 6 hours have gone by and nobody did anything. At this point, we have to do parked regen. You can't drive and make it regen anymore. But it was still running, it was still moving, it's still pumping, we're still using it. Eventually, you can get the stop engine light to come on. That really means at this point, we probably ought to be pulling off the edge of the road and calling for Big Hook or Detroit or somebody to come help us. But a lot of people's mentality is, hey, it's still running, it's still moving, I'm still going to drive. Eventually, it will shut down and not run anymore. When it has done that, you'll definitely be calling for the Big Hook. You'll be calling for the Detroit folks. And that diesel particulate filter in the truck looked like a muffler. The old truck took a $300 to $400 muffler. This thing's $8,500. And it will probably be destroyed at that point. You run it with that stop engine light on until it shuts down. So if the lights come on, make sure we ask for assistance. Call Detroit, call Finley's, call Pierce. Probably the bus garage here has got newer enough buses by now. They all have regen. Anybody around, all of them operate about the same way. And ask questions. Don't ignore the lights. That's the best advice I can give you. I'll leave you that card. It shows all those various lights there and what to do if they're on. It takes diesel exhaust fluid, DEF fluid. Behind that blue cap, you would think there would be a big hole like the diesel fill, but there's not. It's about the size of the top of my Diet Mountain Dew bottle. There's a gauge on the dash. The Pierce trucks hold 4.5 gallons of diesel fuel, or DEF fluid, I'm sorry, not diesel fuel, DEF fluid. I would not try to put DEF fluid in it until I was down to the yellow part of that gauge. Because, however it works, 2.5 gallons in a 4.5 gallon tank, if we're not down into the yellow, when you fill it overflows. There's no automatic shut off like the fuel pump. And
you don't store it.
Right. You've got a shelf life, and so try to get the whole 2.5 gallon jug in there. If the gauge is down to the yellow, then it will take that whole jug without overflowing.
What is the shelf life of that?
About 18 months.
18 months.
But they tell you once you open the container, you use it all. You don't store it.
Right.
You don't keep it once it's open. It's like brake fluid. You don't do that. Once
So,
you open the container, and they sell 1 gallon jugs of it as well. You don't have to buy 2.5. You can buy 1 gallons as well. They come with a hose on them. You screw the hose on, put it in there because you get any shit in that tank, and it plugs it up. It won't take no dirt. Or particular.
and generally most people are buying the 2.5 to carry it, and when time to add, they dump it all in, buy new and carry it, so they have fresh fluid left. We have to add DEF about every 4 to 5 tank fulls of fuel. So we don't normally run our truck down very low before we fill it back up. So our 4 or 5 fill ups aren't 4 or 5 tank fulls of fuel. So there's a gauge there that shows us where our DEF level's at. By all means, don't put anything in there other than DEF fluid. Fire department over by Dayton, they somehow got about 3 gallons of diesel fuel dumped into their DEF tank.
Mm-hmm.
And $40,000 later, they got their truck back from the Detroit dealer. So now they have a locking DEF cap on their truck, so they know what they're putting in there.
I don't know how I got the handle down there.
That's why I like to know how they got that. That's what everybody said, that it had to be a real chore to have got that put in there.
My God, they got it.
If your truck would run out of DEF fluid,
Yeah. Small nickel.
then don't shut it off. Because if it's critically low in DEF fluid or out of DEF fluid, you shut the engine off, it's off. You put some in it. So if we get really low, make sure we keep it running until we get DEF fluid put in. Maintenance, you guys tell me you have somebody does your oil changes, brake jobs, and all that happy stuff. Anybody qualified doing that? You have a checklist, I'm sure, where you check the truck out. Doing the engine pump tests. You guys doing them, we doing them for you, or somebody's doing them. While the truck was new and under warranty, how long of a warranty do we have for the engine transmission? 5 years. In the owner's manual, it tells you how often they want you to change oil in those 5 years. Make sure we follow their guidelines while we're under warranty. That way there's no outs if something bad happens. They can't say, oh, you didn't change your oil at 6 months and that's why the rod went through the block and we're not going to honor your claim now. Make sure you follow their guidelines for those 5 years of what to do. As far as the oil, where would I find what kind of oil goes in the fire pump? On that yellow tag. Tire pressure we talked about. Towing. There's instructions on the CD about how to lift and tow an independent front suspension vehicle. Their suggestion is that you laminate and print them off and put them in the truck, laminate them, carry them in the dash somewhere so that the towing company shows up and they never towed an independent front suspension truck and they want to send the axle lift back underneath there. and pick up on the axle that isn't there, and they might be a little confused. We'll have some directions and guidance that you can cause considerable damage if you don't lift and tow properly. Surveys, you get 2 of those from Pierce. One's about 4 months, one's about 10 months. Please make sure somebody fills those surveys out and send them back. Talking to folks at Finley's, probably John Walter or Melanie are the people we talk to most often. Call down there, Dan and Rick are in parts almost all the time. I'm seldom there in parts, but I'm supposed to be. The 1-888-Y-PIERCE. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can dial that number and speak to a live English-speaking person in Wisconsin.
Yay.
She won't be the lady that will fix your truck. And her first question will be, what is your job number? And within 5 to 10 minutes, somebody will be calling you back that knows what's going on. I've had to use that thing 3 times, twice on Friday nights, out on the road with demo trucks about 8:30 that broke down, and once when our tanker caught fire. The protective wrapping over the exhaust system caught fire on it. It was on Saturday. Every time within 5 minutes they can call back. And it isn't just somebody that calls back, it's somebody that knows the answer to your questions. They'll be able to talk you through your problem, or they will know that you need to send to the hook, or you need to call Finley's and have the service sector not going on. Or they may be able to talk you through and do a few things to get it to go on your own. I mean, there are really knowledgeable people that make the return call. Questions about anything? As you were here when we did the tanker, saw my new fire truck. Not nice and shiny like yours. As time has progressed, time and money can fix anything. Pump water in 11. Got the Bondo paint job in 12. The lettering staff. Tribute to Bob John. Those of you remember him from Philo. That was his famous saying, Tweaky do. It's their old fire truck. In 14, we're making more progress. Someday it'll get done.
What do you got left to do?
Electrical. We need lights now.
Ah.
Headlights, taillights. That's the next big step. And we're pretty well done. Questions about anything? Yeah. Pop break, coffee break, restroom break, and we'll go out to the truck.